There are moments in your life, chosen one, when the world around you responds to something that cannot be seen, only felt. You've entered such a moment now, a subtle shift where your presence no longer walks ahead of you demanding attention, nor trails behind you hoping to be noticed. Your presence is the room now. You are no longer trying to be magnetic, you are magnetism. Not because of manipulation, not because of effort, but because of the energy you have chosen to fully inhabit. And it is this living, breathing, grounded field of pure masculine awareness that is now calling the feminine into her highest form. You walk into a space and women don't just look at you, they respond. Internally, energetically, viscerally. You may notice how their laughter softens, how their posture changes, how their energy lifts. They aren't doing this consciously. It's not a game, it's not performance, it's resonance. Your high sexual energy has become tuned to such a frequency that it awakens in them what was always there but often dormant. Their femininity, their mystery, their softness, their fire, it all begins to rise simply because you have chosen to embody yours without distortion. You are not just arousing desire, you are inspiring expansion. In your presence, women feel the permission to fully be themselves in ways they cannot explain. You no longer trigger the defensive, performative feminine that responds to threat or validation seeking. You now ignite the divine feminine, the intuitive, powerful, sensual, creative force that exists at the core of every woman. She comes alive in your company not because you seek her, but because you hold a frequency that allows her to stop seeking herself. This is not seduction. This is sacred. And if you do not yet fully comprehend the weight of what this means, you will soon. Because when the feminine begins to respond to you in this way, it is no longer about attention or conquest. It is about responsibility. You are not just being noticed, you are being felt deeply. You are being entrusted with an energetic invitation to see, to hold, to honor something most men have never even witnessed, the apex of feminine glory, unveiled not for the world, but for the one who can hold it without trembling. Your presence has become a tuning fork, not by accident, but by the countless unseen choices you've made, choosing stillness over chaos, depth over distraction, truth over performance. You've become rooted, you've stopped running, you've started listening, not to noise but to essence. And now your very being tells the feminine, you are safe here, you are seen here, you are not too much here. And in return, the feminine rises. There is no need for performance now, no need for games. Your presence does not demand, it invites, and that invitation is holy. That's why they glow around you. That's why they begin to speak more openly, laugh more freely, move more confidently, because you are not trying to impress them. You are allowing them to become more of themselves. This is your power now, and this is your responsibility, to recognize that your presence is not casual. It is creative, it shapes what it touches, and those who encounter it will not forget it, because it reminded them of who they truly are. You are the chosen one, and your presence is no longer just yours. It is the catalyst through which the feminine remembers her own greatness. Something changes when a woman feels truly safe in the presence of a man, not physically alone, but emotionally, energetically, spiritually. Safety that doesn't just say you won't be harmed, but instead says you can be free here. Most men don't understand this level of safety. They confuse compliance with connection and attention with affection. But you, chosen one, have crossed into a realm of embodiment where women do not simply tolerate you, they unfold around you. They soften, they rise, they glow. Why? Because your energy has become a sanctuary, not a performance of gentleness, not a facade of sensitivity, but a living field of masculine structure. Firm yet fluid, grounded yet open, powerful yet calm. And within that structure, the feminine can rise to her apex without fear of being punished, belittled, devoured, or misunderstood. She can bring her radiance, her chaos, her tears, her brilliance, all of it, and your presence will not flinch. Your energy does not control her. It contains her, in the highest, most reverent sense of that word. You are no longer reactive to the feminine. You do not shut down in the face of emotion. You do not fear her power, nor do you try to cage it. You meet it with breath, with clarity, with deep-rooted presence. And in doing so, you provide the very thing she has been searching for but rarely finds. A space to be all of herself, without apology. This is why your high sexual energy no longer threatens her. It activates her, not by force, but by frequency. Because she senses that your energy is not just charged, it is consecrated. You do not use it to feed your ego. You use it to hold the sacred fire of transformation. And so she lets go. She exhales. She steps into her fullness because you are already standing in yours. The apex of feminine glory is not something you can coax with clever words or manipulation. It is not a costume she puts on for men who can't handle her truth. It is a response, a sacred response to the presence of a man who no longer needs anything from her, but chooses to see her, feel her, honor her, and not flinch. You have become that man. Not because you sought to control her, but because you've mastered yourself. You are the sanctuary where she is allowed to expand, and her expansion is the greatest compliment your energy could ever receive. You are the chosen one, and now your presence is more than just attractive. It is a refuge, a temple, a place where the feminine can remember that her power was never too much. It was only waiting to be received by someone strong enough to stand in it without fear. You are that someone now, and this is only the beginning. There is a rhythm, chosen one, that lives beneath the surface of everything. It is not made of sound, but of sensation. It doesn't need choreography, only willingness. When your masculine energy becomes refined, when it is no longer driven by conquest but led by presence, it begins to move in harmony with the feminine. And not just one woman, but the feminine itself, that ancient, swirling force that lives in every glance, every curve, every breath of wild softness you encounter. You have now reached the moment where this dance becomes real. Your high sexual energy, once a fire you tried to control or contain, has become your rhythm. It pulses in your presence. It does not chase, but it draws. It does not erupt, it invites. And in the presence of that invitation, the feminine begins to respond in ways that transcend logic. This is not about attraction. This is about activation. She begins to move differently. Her voice changes. Her energy begins to swirl and rise and play. Not because she's putting on a show, but because her body, her soul, feels safe enough to dance. You no longer bring pressure, you bring gravity, and that gravity pulls her into a different kind of awareness, not just of you, but of herself. You've become the mirror in which she sees her own beauty with new eyes, her own power with new reverence, her own softness with new safety. And so she responds, not with performance, but with presence, with openness, with a radiance that only emerges when a woman is witnessed by a man who holds his energy like sacred ground. This dance is not choreographed. You do not lead by force. You lead by holding space, by listening with your entire being, by feeling not just her words but her energy, and moving in response to it, not trying to control it, not trying to contain it, but allowing it to bloom around you, because your energy has become the garden in which she flowers. And this is what separates you now from the many. You are not dancing to impress. You are not performing a role. You are simply embodied, and your embodiment creates permission. Permission for her to shed layers. Permission for her to drop masks. Permission for her to feel everything she hasn't been able to feel in a long time. That kind of presence is not common. It's not casual. It's sacred. And when she feels it, her entire body knows the truth. This is what I've been waiting for. You no longer need to speak for your energy to move her. You no longer need to touch her for your presence to awaken her senses. The space between you becomes electric, alive, charged with tension that is not about possession, but possibility. The air thickens, time slows, and suddenly the smallest glance carries the weight of entire lifetimes. That is the dance. That is the power. That is the movement your energy now commands. This is not a game. It's a gift, one that must be honored every time you step into it. Because what you awaken now is not just desire, it's remembrance. And the feminine in her apex will always remember the man who gave her the space to feel like herself again. You are the chosen one. And now your every breath is part of a dance that calls the sacred feminine to life, not to please you, but to join you in presence. You may have believed, chosen one, that the divine was something distant, something found in silence or solitude, in nature or books, in the stars or the sacred stillness of meditation. But now, as women begin to respond to you in ways that defy the ordinary, you are starting to see the truth. The divine is standing in front of you, watching herself come alive in your reflection. When a woman steps into the full spectrum of her feminine glory, when her eyes carry mystery and power in the same glance, when her voice flows like water, when her movements are effortless and wild, you are not merely witnessing her beauty, you are witnessing God in motion. And this experience is not random. It is a direct consequence of what your presence now permits. Because you have done the work to clean your energy. Because your high sexual energy is no longer contaminated with neediness or distraction. Because you have stopped reaching and started radiating, and in this radiance, something sacred has happened. You have become a living altar, a place where the divine feminine remembers herself through your gaze. Not as an object, not as a possession, but as a force of nature. You no longer seek to define her. You simply allow her to be, and in doing so, you become the mirror she didn't even know she was waiting for, the one who doesn't blur her edges, who doesn't dull her shine, who doesn't tremble when she fully shows up. There is a responsibility in this, because when a woman sees herself clearly through you, when she feels powerful in your presence instead of diminished, when she feels more herself, not less, she begins to open places in her heart that have long been locked. She begins to trust again, to believe again, to soften and to roar at the same time. And the space you hold for that unfolding is sacred ground. You've become more than magnetic. You've become reflective. And this is where your journey deepens. Because now it's no longer about attention. It's about elevation. You're not here to collect admiration. You're here to raise vibration. You are not the end of the journey. You are the portal through which she steps into a fuller version of her own expression. And what a beautiful reflection you now hold. Because in every moment you stay present with her depth, in every breath you take instead of reacting, in every glance you give without agenda, you say, you are allowed to be divine here. You don't have to shrink. You don't have to edit yourself. You don't have to pretend. You are no longer just a man. You are the stage upon which the divine feminine reveals herself. You are the chosen one. And now, everywhere you go, you are not just being seen, you are allowing others to see themselves more clearly through you. You've become the mirror the divine was waiting for. And the feminine, at her apex, rises to meet you there, not with effort, but with grace. There is a turning point in the path of the chosen one when he begins to realize that his energy alone is no longer the centerpiece of the room, but the invitation to something far more profound. You've reached that point. No longer intoxicated by your own fire, no longer pulled by the tides of external admiration, you are now watching something far more sacred unfold before your eyes. The feminine is flourishing in your presence, and it is not because she is trying to impress you. It is because you have given her space to shine. This is the hidden, unseen power of appreciation, not the kind that flatters, not the kind that chases, not the kind that idolizes, but the kind that recognizes the divine essence in another and says nothing needs to be added. Your appreciation, chosen one, has matured. It is no longer reactive. It is no longer selective. It is no longer conditional. It now flows from a deep place of witnessing without ownership, of honoring without taking, of seeing beauty not for what it can give you, but simply because it is. Women now are not reacting to what you say or how you move. They are reacting to the frequency of your appreciation. They can feel that you are not there to possess them, but to celebrate what's already true in them. And that celebration activates something rare, a level of expression, confidence, sensuality, and glory they often keep buried beneath years of conditioning and survival. Around you, they can breathe more fully. Around you, they remember that being radiant is not a performance, it's their nature. Your gaze is no longer hungry, it's reverent. Your smile is no longer a tactic, it's an acknowledgement. Your attention is no longer scattered, it's intentional. And because of this, the feminine responds. She doesn't just become more flirtatious, she becomes more whole. Her laughter deepens, her eyes become bolder, her walk becomes freer. And she feels more herself than she did before she met you. Not because you gave her permission, but because your appreciation created a mirror where she could see herself clearly. You are no longer tempted to interrupt her expression to direct it. You don't seek to fix her or tame her or mold her into what suits your ego. You've released the need to be in control of the moment, because you've mastered the one thing most never do: the ability to witness beauty without needing to touch it. And this is what makes you unforgettable. This is what they feel even when they don't fully understand it. You've become the man whose energy does not compete with the feminine, but complements it. There is nothing performative in how you see her now. It's not a line, it's not a role, it's not a chase, it's an energetic offering. You are saying, I see you in your full power, and I do not flinch. And that changes everything. Because when a woman knows she is truly seen without being pursued, she opens. When she feels celebrated without being claimed, she glows. And when she is appreciated without conditions, she becomes limitless. This chapter is not about becoming more magnetic. It is about becoming more miraculous. Not in the sense of spectacle, but in the quiet, steady way you hold space for others to rise. Your appreciation is now sacred. It's not a compliment, it's a transmission. And those who receive it walk away changed, whether they admit it or not. You are the chosen one. And your appreciation is no longer something you offer as a gift. It is the gift, the mirror that allows the feminine to see her own divinity reflected back with clarity and grace. There is a silent revolution happening within you, chosen one that is not loud, one that cannot be seen by the untrained eye. It is the deepening of your emotional body, the quiet expansion of your inner space, the unwavering willingness to hold your own heart without shame. And it is from this quiet revolution that something extraordinary begins to emerge. Your ability to cultivate emotional depth in those around you, especially in the women drawn to your presence. You have shed the surface-level interactions. You've abandoned the game of fast compliments and quicker exits. You no longer need to impress with stories. You no longer hide behind charm. You've stopped trading in shallow affection. Now, your energy offers something else, a door into depth, and women feel it the moment they come near you. They can sense that you are not here to skip across the surface. You are here to dive. You've become emotionally available, not in a way that seeks attention, but in a way that builds trust. You do not run from difficult truths. You do not fear tears, your own or hers. You do not recoil when someone becomes vulnerable. You remain, you breathe, you open. And that simple act, your staying, is more powerful than any romantic gesture. Because in a world where people are used to being left in their most vulnerable moments, your presence becomes revolutionary. Women sense this depth in you, and it awakens something in them that cannot be awakened through physical attention alone. They begin to speak more truth. They begin to share more story. They begin to reveal pieces of themselves that even they haven't spoken aloud. And not because you're extracting it, but because your energy makes it safe to emerge. You are not the spotlight, you are the stage. And on that stage, the feminine gets to play her full range without judgment. Your emotional depth is not softness, it is strength. You are no longer reactive, you are responsive. You no longer panic when someone brings chaos. You hold structure. You no longer seek control, you offer clarity. This level of inner maturity is what makes women chase not just your body, but your energy. Because in your presence, they do not feel reduced to roles. They feel remembered. They feel the version of themselves they used to dream about. And that version becomes real, not because you gave it to them, but because you made room for it. You ask questions that don't come from curiosity, but from care. You listen not to fix, but to witness. You feel without retreating. You share without performing. And in that exchange, you are building a new template of masculine energy. One that doesn't dominate, one that doesn't disappear, one that stays grounded, even when everything else trembles. You are the chosen one. And now, your emotional depth is no longer just yours to carry. It is a wellspring for others to draw from. And the feminine, in all her complexity, now rises in your presence not to be rescued, but to be met. Fully, fiercely, finally. There is a silence, chosen one, that carries more intimacy than touch, more invitation than flirtation, and more power than presence alone. It is the silence of a man who listens, not with intent to reply, but with the capacity to hold everything. You have entered a stage in your journey where your ability to listen has become a spiritual tool. And the women who enter your energy now do not simply want to be around you, they want to be heard by you. But what they are seeking is not surface-level validation. They don't want a man who nods at the right times, who waits to speak, who hears the words but misses the frequency. They want to be heard with your whole body, your whole awareness, your grounded masculine stillness that says you are safe to speak without being judged. You are free to feel without being interrupted. That kind of listening is rare. That kind of listening is sacred, and you, chosen one, have cultivated it. You no longer try to fix, you no longer try to compare, you no longer fear what might come up in her voice. You have reached a depth within yourself where you can receive her chaos, her sensuality, her sorrow, her rage, her joy, and not recoil. Because you know those things are not personal. They are truths being revealed in the presence of safety. And your energy, now that it has ripened through stillness and awareness, is that safety. When you listen now, it's not about information, it's about invitation. You are not listening to respond, you are listening to honor. And that honoring gives the feminine something she rarely receives: space to hear herself. In your presence, she is not simply being known, she is being understood. Her pauses are not filled, her softness is not rushed, her wounds are not dismissed. You are not in a hurry to rescue her from her truth. You are there to witness it, to hold it, to respect it. This kind of listening is not passive. It is active, alive, and deeply rooted in discipline. It requires that you remain in your body when her words stir your emotions. It requires that you stay open when your mind wants to defend. It demands that you feel without needing to control. And that capacity, to feel without trying to fix, is what makes your energy so magnetic now. She feels it. Even before she speaks, she knows she can say things she has never said. She knows you won't weaponize her vulnerability. She knows you won't run when she shows her depth. And that knowing makes her rise. She doesn't just soften, she expands. She accesses deeper layers of wisdom, creativity, desire, and radiance. Not because you pulled it from her, but because you were still enough to receive it. You have become the space where transformation happens without force. You have become the pause that makes the moment feel sacred. You have become the man whose silence is louder than any other's words. You are the chosen one, and your ability to listen now creates a world within the woman before you where her soul is no longer echoing into nothing, but is finally fully heard. Power is not what you take from someone. True power, chosen one, is what you give back. And the highest expression of your energy now is not in your ability to attract, to awaken, to command. It is in your ability to let go. To empower the feminine, not by holding her, but by releasing her into her full autonomy without fear, without control, without needing her to orbit your light to feel significant. You have done the inner work to such a degree that you no longer fear independence. You no longer interpret strength in a woman as resistance. You no longer see her fire as threat. In fact, you celebrate it. You no longer need her to be small so you can feel big. You no longer expect her to silence herself to maintain peace. You trust her growth, you honor her path, you respect her freedom. And this, now, is your power. Because when women come into your orbit, they do not feel trapped, they feel expanded. They do not feel examined, they feel respected. You offer guidance without grip, direction without demand, presence without pressure. And that absence of control is what makes them chase. Not because they are desperate to be chosen, but because you've given them the space to choose themselves first. You are no longer a cage, you are a cathedral, a sacred place where she can come and meet herself more fully. And if she stays not out of fear of losing you, but out of joy for what you create together. You are not looking for someone to complete you. You are building connection with someone who is already whole. You do not rush to lock anything down because your worth is no longer tied to possession. It is rooted in embodiment. Your high sexual energy has evolved. It's no longer just desire, it's devotion. Not devotion to a person, but to truth. And when truth leads your relationships, control dissolves. What remains is resonance. Two sovereign beings standing side by side, not because of fear or performance, but because the energy between them is free. And freedom is the highest aphrodisiac there is. You now understand the most sacred law of masculine power, that you don't need to hold someone tightly for them to stay. You need only be so grounded, so open, so whole, that the feminine in her apex feels more herself when she is near you than when she is not. That feeling is what creates longing. That freedom is what creates loyalty. That release is what creates return. And so now, chosen one, you do not lead through command. You lead through clarity. You do not demand presence. You offer peace. You do not chase loyalty. You inspire it. By the way you empower the feminine to remember her own. You are the chosen one. And now your greatest gift is not what you give or what you say. It is the space you allow for others to become fully themselves, and the strength in you that no longer fears their wings. There are men who offer comfort. There are men who offer pleasure. There are men who offer excitement. But very few offer what you, chosen one, now radiate without trying. Healing. Not through words, not through promises, not through declarations of wisdom or spiritual language, but simply by being fully present. You have become medicine for the feminine, not because you fix her, but because your energy allows her to stop trying to fix herself. You have become the quiet space between thoughts, the breath before confession, the steady heartbeat beneath the trembling. When women step into your presence now, they do not merely see a man, they feel a sanctuary, a field of safety that does not demand them to explain or adjust. You no longer meet their pain with fear, their emotion with escape, or their intensity with suppression. You meet them with stillness, with breath, with understanding that does not require explanation. And it is in this exact stillness that the healing begins. You've realized now that you don't need to carry another person's pain to help them release it. You don't need to absorb it, or speak over it, or wrap it in solutions. You simply need to be so rooted in your own wholeness that their fragmented parts stop feeling like burdens. In your steadiness, their storms begin to settle. Not because you changed them, but because you never moved. The feminine is not always looking for answers. Often, she is looking for space. Space to feel it all, to cry, to rage, to laugh, to unravel without being discarded. And what you now offer is a man who doesn't flinch when the mask falls. A man who stays, who listens, who doesn't pathologize every tear, doesn't fear every outburst, doesn't react with silence or defensiveness, but receives it all like a sacred offering. You now know that when a woman brings her rawest self, she's not trying to test you. She's trying to heal in front of you. And because your energy is clean, because your high sexual energy has been refined into presence, she doesn't feel used. She doesn't feel rushed. She doesn't feel like her emotions are too loud or her body too much. She feels invited, not to perform, not to seduce, but to exist, to exhale, to be fully felt in all her frequencies, not just the ones that are convenient. You no longer see emotion as chaos. You see it as movement. You understand now that her fire is not meant to scorch you, but to purify what in you is still afraid. And you, chosen one, have ceased to be afraid. You have faced your own darkness. You have sat with your own sadness. You have stared into your own hunger and asked it what it truly needed. And because you have done this within yourself, you are no longer disturbed by what rises in others. You are not here to be a savior. You are not here to rescue. You are simply here to hold space. That is what makes you powerful now. Your energy says you can bring all of you here, and I will still see the divine. And that kind of presence, steady, sacred, without agenda, is the most healing frequency in the world. You are the chosen one. And now, your silence holds more transformation than most people's promises. You are not the answer. You are the reminder of what has been whole all along. What remains, chosen one, when the fire has calmed, when the voices fade, when the moment passes? What echoes in the hearts of those who stood near you? What memory lives not just in the mind, but in the soul? Your legacy is no longer in what you build or what you conquer. It is in what you awaken. And now, after all the rising, the refining, the rooting, you leave behind not a trail of conquest, but a path of illumination. You are the man who reminded the feminine of who she could be at her highest. And you did it without asking her to become anything other than herself. She stood taller after you, she smiled deeper, she moved differently, not because you owned her, but because your presence showed her how much of herself had been waiting to emerge. This is what women now say about you. This is why they speak your name with a reverent kind of affection. Not for what you took, but for what you never tried to take. Not for what you demanded, but for the freedom you gave them to be. And this freedom, it is your legacy. You have become a man who doesn't dim the feminine to feel powerful. You have become a man who doesn't chase loyalty because he's too aligned to compromise his energy. You've become a lighthouse, not because you sought to be seen, but because you stayed lit in your own truth long enough to become visible. The apex of feminine glory rises around you because you no longer see yourself as the center of the story. You see yourself as the stage on which others rediscover themselves. And in that sacred humility, you have unlocked something few ever do: impact without ego. Your life is no longer about proving yourself. It's about being yourself so fully that others are inspired to do the same. Even those who leave your life do not leave unchanged. They carry the frequency of your presence in their nervous systems. They remember what it felt like to be met, to be seen, to be held without condition. They may not call it healing,